Hi, so my name's Tessa Nelson, and I'll be going over my theory of focus, which is cognitive, moral, and faith development. All right. All right, so first we're going to talk about Jean Piaget, and he was a Swiss psychologist and biologist who was primarily interested in cognitive development. Through studies of his own children and eventually others, he discovered his theory of cognitive development. And so there are four underlying causal factors that lead into his main theory. And one is maturation leads to physical growth. The other one is physical experience. Actions associated with the environment leads to a simulation accommodation. Social interaction is interchange of ideas between two people. And equilibrium kind of takes all three of them and then creates kind of a self-regulating system. And so in his four stages, there's a sensory motor period where children begin to develop complex behavior with coordination of their senses. And then pre-operational, children can now play out their decisions mentally and not just physically. Their behavior becomes less egocentric and more social. Concrete operations, children will develop like reason over perception. They will be able to undo actions in their mind. And they began to understand that when the properties of an object do not change because appearance is altered. Formal operations is like scientific reasoning begins. Problems are now approached by using logic, and hypothetical reasoning is possible. And so there were some further developments in cognitive development, and there's some debate about it. So theorist Robert Sternberg believed that Piaget used more obscure tasks to determine intelligence, and he thought he based it more in like a classroom setting and that it wasn't all encompassing. So he theorized that there are three different kinds of intelligences that covered the ability to do well on tests, the aptitude of creative thinkers, and those who have developed street smarts. For the theory of multiple intelligences, Howard Gardner believed that there are actually 8 intelligences, and he believed that each intelligence were not synonymous with the other one, and needed different tests to determine the level of intelligence in these separate areas. And so Piaget also created a theory of moral development. And he had 2 stages from 5 to 10 and then 10 to adulthood. So there's only 2. And the 5 through 10 is moral realism, which the rules are laid out by authority figures. Children do not understand reason for the rules, but they respect and follow them. In stage 2, children become aware of the reasoning for rules and they are regarded with consent and respected. However, this gentleman named Lawrence Kolberg did not necessarily agree that that moral reasoning was fully developed by age 10. So he established his own theory with 6 different stages. One is obedient and punishment. And so this one means that there's like no internalized awareness of right and wrong. Rules are imposed by authority figures and children follow rules to avoid punishment. Stage 2 is the naively egoistic. And in this stage, children follow rules to gain reward and favor. They satisfy their own needs without much thought for others. Stage 3 is the good boy, nice girl orientation. And in this stage particularly, children follow the rules for social favor or to avoid disapproval by peers. Stage 4 is adolescence, is maintaining morality. Adolescents begin to understand the larger society and social order. They believe in uniform and fair application of laws. They show respect for social institutions. And then stage 5 is contractual legalistic orientation. People choose moral contracts to guide their lives. Laws violate human rights should be challenged, and a distinction between law and morality emerge. And then 6 is the universal, is the universal principle of orientation. This is autonomous morality based in like individual like conscience, and so more on like compassion and other things. And there is definitely a difference between understanding understanding more of human rights, and that laws do not always support human rights and the systems do not always support them. Carol Gilligan had her own critiques about Kolberg's theory, and she believed that he failed to account for gender differences between male and female development. And so she ended up developing her own feminist theory. And in this one, she believed that women initially have self-survival. And so moral reasoning only cares for oneself. Females may feel like they lack power and are alone, which leads to self-survival being the main concern. This eventually causes women to develop a care for others and sympathy for others. In stage 2, caring for others, as that connection between self and others grow, women accept the moral social role in motherhood and understand the responsibility to care for others. And they begin to make this their primary concern, which leads to the exclusion of their self. and that leads to disequilibrium and some internal struggle. In stage 3, interdependence of self and others. And during this stage, women realize that the needs of self and others must be balanced, that there's like a balance between the two of them. They both need to be respected. This balance helps women realize interdependence is not weakness, but rather a source of moral strength. And so we're going to be getting into the James W. Fowler, and he was a professor of theology, ethics, and human development, and he was a Methodist minister, and he attempted to make a theory on faith development that could apply to any faith group. And he also tried to make it so, like, well, many social workers use his theory for spiritual development and not just only religious development. So this theory of development has 7 different stages in it. So it's kind of a bit expansive and large. And primal faith is step 1, and its consistent nurturance by parents gives a basic sense of trust in the universe and the divine. And so, like, children who are neglected or who have abuseful experiences can gain the notions of a punitive and undependable God. Stage 2 is intuitive projective faith. As children develop language capacity and symbolization, it causes them to fantasize about the mysterious and about, like, stories that they've been told in religion. And then stage 3 is mythical literal faith. A child begins to recognize the feelings and impulses of others. They learn from more sophisticated stories. They learn from these stories from the morals of their identified community. And belief is shaped by loyalty to the community. And religion tends to be seen as legalistic. God is seen as a being who gives out reward and punishment. In stage 4, synthetic conventional faith, youth begin to take perspective of others into account. This gives them the ability to reflect on the meaning of a person's life and relationships. Ideas on ultimacy are created with the influence of the family, social, and peer groups. This creates a need, and so that creates kind of more social conformity with religion, especially in a culture group. And most adults will not go past this stage, but there are 3 more stages. Stage 5, individual reflective stage, which is young adults will question the belief that they were raised with. They engage in critical reflection and gain more responsibility of their faith, and especially when their values and the values of others contradict. And they demythologize their master stories and seek to understand a much deeper and sense of life. And so stage 6 is conjunctive faith, and critical reflection gives a sense to ambiguity and paradoxes. The adult will try to integrate both symbolic and rational claims of truth, and they will appreciate both of them. Competing faiths and faith traditions become appreciated, and faith brings commitment to a set of beliefs and values with openness to other beliefs and cultures. This includes, like, personal choices. Stage 7, this stage brings adults to resolve their paradoxes. So they take the perspective of other cultures and nationalities and faith traditions, in addition to their own. People who believe in a personal God will begin to see like God's unconditional love. They are open to other people in their faiths. Unconditional love from God and this belief in it brings about feelings of social justice and social action. It challenges perspective and challenges, like, the egocentric, ethnocentric, and religiously fundamental norms of whatever culture group the faith is in. And so I've had to address also nature versus nurture in this, because it talked about it a lot in the book. More and more research has been conducted on the brain and the neurotransmitters involved in thought and emotion. The mind and the body are no longer being viewed as separate entities. And so genetics is a heavy influence on evolutionary psychology and sociobiology. It attributes biological causation to cognitive and social functioning. However, researchers continue to argue whether biological factors versus environmental factors have stronger ability to determine behavior and personality traits. Research has shown that even though genetics is a strong factor, environment has a stronger influence on determining personality and behavior. And so a real world example is, I currently work with a kid in school who kind of, like, is a little bit slower in Piaget's in this Lawrence's Kolberg theory of moral development. And so, hang on just one second. There we go. Now we can better see it. And so There's the good boy, nice girl, and then naively egotistic. In this stage, children follow rules to gain reward and favor, and they satisfy their own need without the thought of others. And then stage 3, as we talked about, children follow rules for social favor to award disapproval. The child that I'm currently working with has a very difficult, he's like kind of stuck in stage 2 when he should be in stage 3. And so like he has a very difficult time playing games with other kids on the playground, like tag and other such things, because he does not like being it, and he doesn't like being the person who loses, even though it's just a natural part of playing games. And so he is definitely trying to satisfy his own need, and without much thought for others. And he often gets social disapproval by peers in this, and it causes a lot of conflict, and he will often storm out of games and become frustrated with his friends and peers because of these difficulties that he has. And so he definitely is still kind of stuck also on that rules are imposed by authority figures. He doesn't like to really adhere to classroom rules and regulations, and he doesn't really do things to avoid punishment. Everything is kind of generally to get his own needs met. And so he's really having a hard time with the first 3 stages that he's supposed to be in. And this causes, some difficulty for him in the classroom. And we're trying to currently teach him about the rules that he needs to be in. And so this is my works cited page. So I hope that you guys ended up really liking my presentation, and you have a great day. Bye, everyone.